Hello friends, welcome to Manifest IAS. This is Karan George. I am Ayush Agarwal, Economics faculty at Manifest IAS. Now coming to Industry and Employment Part 2, in the first part of the video we had discussed about the labor codes, we had discussed about disinvestment and many other things. Now coming to Industry and Employment Part 2, today in this video we'll be covering about the new guidelines for e-commerce sector, Consumer Protection Act, Niti Aayog's India Innovation Index, LT Pro, about rules for FDI in retail and other sectors, Model Tenancy Act, Steel Recycling Policy, and also the proposed changes in MSME definition. Now coming to the first lecture or the first point, which is the guidelines regarding to e-commerce.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
So why are these guidelines important? First of all, these guidelines are attuned to, or we need to tune them according to the Consumer Protection Act. According to this, the Consumer Protection Act will clearly say that there is a 14-day deadline to effect refunds, also to mandate e-tailers to display details of sellers supplying goods and services on their website, and also some foolproof procedure to resolve the consumer complaints has to be set up on the e-commerce portals such as Amazon and Flipkart. Now, the companies must protect the personal information of customers. So this is about maintaining privacy, and also it should not directly or indirectly influence the price of the goods or services and maintain a level playing field between online and offline. So what is the basis for this policy, or what is the background to this policy? So we'll talk about the e-commerce policy in general. So first of all, the changes in FDI policy for e-commerce were aimed at tackling anti-competitive behavior. Again, anti-competitive behavior by likes of Amazon, Flipkart. So what are these anti-competitive behavior? First of all, it prevents e-commerce firms from selling products of companies in which they have stake. Then it talks about preventing exclusive partnership with brands such as Xiaomi or OnePlus. Then it clamps down on the loopholes in the organizational structure. For example, large sellers and large vendors should not benefit at the cost of small sellers and small vendors. Then it talks about clamping down on discounts, or what we call predatory pricing in economics. So because of discounts, there was massive gap between offline and online prices. So that's why offline retailers were suffering a lot. So it talks about no deep discounting in the e-commerce policy. So how does it impact us, or how does it impact the online and offline retailers? First of all, there will no longer be exclusive launches of products such as OnePlus phones, etc. Then faster deliveries and deeper discounts will no longer be there according to the policy. Then cashback offered by sites would be very limited. Then affiliate sellers like Cloudtail, Apero of various websites will no longer hold a pole position on the respective websites. Then customers may no longer get deep discounts and exclusive offers from Flipkart, Amazon, and various programs of these e-commerce websites. And lastly, Big Billion Days, Great Indian Sale, etc. may be a thing of the past. So who stands to gain? Because if you look at the previous slide, it is clear that the people who are habitual of Amazon and Flipkart might think that this is a very bad policy. But who stands to gain from this? So if you look at the broader interest of the economy, the broader interest as a sector of retail sector in India, who stands to gain? First of all, the physical retail stores will get a level playing field, because they will not be able to match the discounts offered on Amazon and Flipkart. So if you see, it provides a level playing field. Then next, small sellers on e-commerce platforms will also benefit, because there will not be concentration of large vendors on sites like Amazon, which is a way of indirectly dominating the market. So small sellers will also get a foothold in the e-commerce platform. Then next, the government retail owners from a large part of the current dispensation vote bank. So that means that most of the vote bank does not shop online. So it will benefit a broader economy. Next, we'll come to Consumer Protection Act. So what does this act about? Under the bill, a consumer is defined as a person who buys any good or avails a service for a consideration or for a price. It covers transactions through all modes, including offline, online, electronic means, teleshopping, multi-level marketing, or direct selling, etc. So it is very clear it includes direct selling, multi-level marketing, tele-shopping, etc. So even Amway, Oriflame, etc. are covered through direct selling or multi-level marketing is also covered under the Act. So this is very important. Then next, the Central Consumer Protection Authority will be set up as a Central Consumer Protection Authority to promote, protect and enforce the rights of consumers. It will also have an investigation wing headed by a Director General. So what is this about? Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission will be set up at the district, state and national levels. A consumer can file complaint with CDRCs in relation to unfair or restrictive trade practices, defective goods, overcharging, and also the offering of goods and services for sale which may be hazardous to life and safety. Also, it is very important to note that final appeal will lie before the Supreme Court, although there will be national appeals from a district CDRC to the state CDRC, etc. Lastly, what are the jurisdiction of these CDRCs? First, the district CDRC will entertain complaints not exceeding 1 crore, the state not exceeding 10 crores, and national would be having complaints which are over 10 crores in nature. But we can always go from that. If your state rejects, you can take it up with the national one, and if you're not satisfied with the judgment of the national CDRC, the final court of appeal will be the Supreme Court. So what does the Consumer Protection Act cover? It talks about product liability. Liability of a product manufacturer, service provider or seller to compensate a consumer for any harm or injury caused by a defective good or service. Then it talks about penalties for misleading advertisement. So this is very important. Even the endorser or the celebrity will be caught in times of misleading in advertisement. On a manufacturer or endorser up to rupees 10 lakh. For example, if MS Dhoni is advertising from some real estate company, if that real estate company defaults, even Dhoni will be treated as an endorser of those products and may be penalized up to rupees 10 lakhs or imprisonment up to 2 years for a false or misleading advertisement. So if you do it again and again, it is subsequently raised to rupees 50 lakh and imprisonment also rises to up to 5 years. Now coming to prohibition of misleading advertisements, a CCPA can also prohibit the endorser for misleading advertisements from endorsing the particular product or service for up to 1 year. So that means whether you have done something wrong, then you are not be allowed to do it again, or you can be prevented by CCPA or Consumer Protection Authority for up to 1 year for endorsing similar products. The next pillar is Niti Aayog India Innovation Index. Under this, Karnataka has been ranked the most innovative state in the Niti Aayog's Innovation Index 2019. Then, what are the other states which have done well? Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Telangana, Haryana, Kerala, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Gujarat and Andhra have done very well in the rankings. Then the states have been bifurcated into 3 categories, which is major states, northeast and hilly states, and UTs, small cities, etc. So what is this index about? The index attempts to create an extensive framework for the continual evaluation of the innovation environment of 29 states and 7 UTs, and also intends to perform the following functions. The first is ranking of states and UTs based on the index scores. Second, recognition of opportunities and challenges. And lastly, assisting in tailoring government policies to foster innovation. So India Innovation Index, which is up to 2019, it talks about 2 dimensions. First is enablers and performance. So what are the enablers? It is human capital, investment, knowledge of workers, business environment, safety and legal environment, etc. And what is the performance about? It's about knowledge output and knowledge diffusion. So therefore, this is a comprehensive index encouraging states to participate more in innovation, research and development, etc. Now coming to innovation itself, under this an important category has been L2 Pro. Now what is L2 Pro about? L2 Pro is about learn to protect, secure and maximize your innovation on intellectual property rights. So as we can see from the slide, this is an initiative of Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade or DPIIT. Now the modules of this e-learning platform or L2 Pro India IP e-learning platform and the L2 Pro India mobile app will aid and enable youth, innovators, entrepreneurs, MSMEs in understanding IPRs better, and also to integrate this IP knowledge into their business models and also in their R&D efforts. So the website and app has been developed by Cell for IPR Promotion and Management, or CPAM, under DPIIT in collaboration with Qualcomm and National Law University of Delhi. L2 Pro has been successfully implemented in Germany, United Kingdom, Italy and France. So India is a fifth country which is trying to implement this in order to foster more research and development, better cohesion, better efficiency, etc. in the research outcomes and also filing of the intellectual property rights. The learning app has been customized for India in order to ensure that innovation, which is fundamental to startups, are protected. Lastly, the LT Pro India IP e-learning platform will have 11 basic modules at 3 levels, which is basic, intermediate and advanced. Each module comprises of e-text for understanding concepts, videos, learners' knowledge, testing, understanding, etc. Also, if you can see, learners will access the L2 Pro platform from desktop, laptop, mobile. So it is multi-functional in nature. And also the CPAM DPIIT will provide e-certificates based on the successful completion of modules. Next, we come to the reforms in the FDI policy, especially in retail. So currently FDI policy says that the single brand retail, single brand here means that the single company selling products in its own store is more than 51%, but 30% of the goods must be sourced from within India, especially MSMEs. The new decision says that this 30% can be calculated over the first 5 years. So if you are not able to do it in the first year, it is not a problem. In cumulative in the first 5 years, you must cross the barrier of 30% of goods which have been sourced from India. Lastly, with a view to provide greater flexibility and an ease of operations to single brand retail entities, it has been decided that all procurements made from India will be covered under the 30% cap. The current FDI policy provides for 100% FDI under automatic route in the manufacturing sector. So there was no provision for contract manufacturing in the policy. See, for example, if Apple wants to come to India, but Apple does not manufacture anywhere. It manages through contracts given to Foxconn, etc. So Foxconn was not covered under the earlier regime. So what have we changed? That another change has been that approved single brand retail companies can now start selling online before setting up a brick and mortar sale. For example, online sales can start, contract manufacturing can start. So this is expected to boost more FDI and more investment into Indian economy. So what are the investment avenues here? For example, single brand sourcing, more foreign retail brands may set up. Contract manufacturing, FDI in coal, as we discussed in the stimulus package as well. That monopoly of coal India likely to end, and this will create an efficient market for energy. For example, India is having the third largest reserves of coal, and still we are importing coal. So this will help in boosting employment, boosting sales, boosting energy efficiency, etc. And also 26% FDI limit was extended to digital media platforms. So what are the recent FDI reforms? As we can see from the slide, approval mechanism, defense, airlines, all sectors have been covered in the recent reforms in FDI. Now coming to the next pillar, which is Model Tenancy Act. So what is this Model Tenancy Act about? It talks about the balance of interest between the owner and tenant under the draft Model Tenancy Act of 2019. This now, although this is a state subject, but the model law was brought by the center to be adopted by the states. Coming to the next point, the existing rent control laws are restricting the growth of rental housing and discouraging the owners from renting out their vacant houses due to fear of repossession. So this act will make it transparent. There will be a robust grievance redressal mechanism consisting of rent authority, rent court, and rent tribunals. Also, it has been proposed to cap the security deposit equal to a maximum of 2 months rent in case of residential properties and minimum of 1 month's rent in case of non-residential properties. Lastly, after coming into force of this act, no person shall let or take on rent any premises except by an agreement in writing. So that will make the whole property market as a formal market which is registered. So Model Act provides for applicability of whole of the state, urban as well as rural areas in the state. So within 2 months, it talks about having a rent authority, rent agreements, unique identification number of the property, etc. Lastly, a digital platform will be set up in the local vernacular language of the state for submitting tenancy agreements and other documents. Next important pillar for our slide is steel scrap recycling policy. So under this, it talks about regulation and formulation of scrap industry in India. It talks about norms for collection, processing of scrap, safety of workers, health of workers, etc. It talks about improving steel production and reducing the import bill. The current supply of scrap is around 25 million metric tons, and we can do a much more in this by becoming a hub for steel scrap and steel recycling of the world. So what does it talk about? It promotes collection, processing, recycling of products in an organized, safe and environmental friendly manner. It talks about dismantling and shredding facilities in compliance with hazardous and other waste management rules. It talks about circular economy. Now, circular economy is a very important concept for the point of view of environment as well. So it talks about producer responsibility, emissions, waste recycling, etc. Thus, the steel scrap shall be recycled to produce high-grade steel, so which can be used for manufacturing automobiles, etc. Then lastly, it talks about authorizing steel scrapping centers on 6R principle. What is the 6R principle? Reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, redesign and remanufacture. So it is also very environmental friendly policy. Now what is the main concept behind steel scrap policy? It talks about a hub and spoke model. Hub and spoke model will talk about a scrap processing center and dismantling centers where aggregators and collection agents would be involved. So one can have a look at the diagram to better understand the hub and spoke model in steel scrap recycling policy. So all this is in line with the National Steel Policy announced in 2017, which aims to make India 300 million ton per annum steel production hub by 2030. So what is this about? Although scrap is a main raw material for secondary sector, but the primary sector also uses scrap in the charge mix of BOF to tune of 15% to improve efficiency, minimize cost, etc. So availability of raw material at competitive rates were the major issues and discussed under the National Steel Policy 2017, and that was a limiting factor in achieving the target of 300 million tons per annum. So scrap-based steel making technologies have been emphasized as one of the most important options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions intensity. Lastly, we have to produce high-grade steel in India. So this steel scrap will also help us in achieving targets for manufacturing of high-grade steel in India. Lastly, for the last pillar for this slide, which is proposed changes in MSME definition. Now, micro, small and medium enterprises were having a fixed definition. So a change in definition is expected to improve the ease of doing business and help create more jobs. For example, the MSME classification restricted the companies from expanding too far, and also there was a fear that if they expand beyond a particular point, they might lose out on the benefits such as sourcing norms, priority sector credit, etc. because they are growing too fast and they will not remain a MSME. So this was limiting their factor in participation of global tenders, government contracts, e-commerce, etc. So this is expected to do what? It is expected to boost economic development, innovation and employment. Also the MSME sector contributes 45% to the manufacturing output, 40% of exports and roughly 28% to GDP. So in a way, we are, by changing the definition, we are unshackling the sector into more openness, more competitiveness and more investment. Lastly, the definition was based previously on investment limits in plant and machinery or equipment, which was the act which was 2006, which is MSME Development Act or Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act 2006. But such a definition does not reflect the current increase in the price index, which is the plant and machinery itself has become more expensive compared to 2006. So we need to have a comprehensive definition to push growth in MSMEs and growth from becoming small dwarfs into giants, as the economic survey talked about, dwarfs to giants. So what is the existing criteria? As we can see from this slide, existing we have manufacturing which is having different criteria, and service sector has a different criteria based on the investments in plant and machinery. For example, micro is below 25 lakhs, small plant and machinery below 5 crore, medium industry which is plant and machinery below 10 crore. But as we can see from this slide, that the new criteria which has just been announced talks about investment and annual turnover both, or it talks about investment or annual turnover. So either you have Higher annual turnover, either you will look at turnover or you can look at investment or a combination of both. So the classification has been significantly enhanced for micro, and also important thing to note that there is no difference between manufacturing and service sector anymore. So we have a composite cap. Composite cap here means there is no separate definition for manufacturing or the service sector. So as we can see in micro, the investment limit stands at below 1 crore, so which is 4 times the previous limit, and also the turnover limit is extended to 5 crore. So this will help in a long way in unshackling the MSME sector. Please like and subscribe to the videos, and also please comment in the section. Thank you.